Dear honorable guests, scholars, and friends, welcome back to the afternoon session of the Tung Lin Kok Yuen 90th Anniversary International Conference with the theme Tracing the Threads, the Enduring Legacy of Buddhist Transmission, jointly organized by Tung Lin Kok Yuen and the Hong Kong U.S. Center of Buddhist Studies. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Catherine Hardy to welcome and introduce the first speaker of this section. Professor Hardy, please.
Thank you, Carol. Welcome back, everybody. So I would like to introduce Venerable Sik Hung Hong from the Center of Buddhist Studies here at HKU. The Venerable graduated from the University of Oregon in the US and initially worked in the business and financial sector upon his return to Hong Kong. In 1990, he was ordained a Buddhist monk under Grandmaster Venerable Sheng Yi, and later obtained an MA in Religious Studies from SOAS in 1993. So Venerable Hin Hong is one of the founding fellows of our Center of Buddhist Studies at the University of Hong Kong. He served as the center director for nearly a decade. Currently, he is a senior fellow in the counseling program. He's been instrumental in establishing, indeed, the Masters of Buddhist Counseling, as well as the Master of Buddhist Studies, as well as the newly launched postgraduate diploma in professional practice. And that's within the counselling program too. He also holds positions of Managing Vice President and Administrator General at the Hong Kong Buddhist Association and has provided counselling services to the staff of the Hong Kong Hospital Authority for many years. Venerable Hin Hong teaches meditation and has worked to repackage Buddhist teachings to make them more accessible for contemporary audiences. He continues to teach Buddhist meditation and supervises students in Buddhist counseling. His current research projects include the Awareness Training Program, Dharma Therapy, Neuroscience of Meditation, and Guangdong Yujie Yankou, among others. And he also has numerous publications on Buddhism, psychotherapy, and Buddhist education. He will be speaking on the topic today of pearls of early Buddhist wisdom, tracing the transmission of the Atthaka Varga and Parayana Varga. Please join with me in welcoming Venerable Hin Hong.
Thank you, Professor Hardy, for introductions. As you are listening to Professor Hardy introduce my introductions, the topic of today is not my specialties, but it is my love, because when I first heard about the Atthaka Vega and the Parayana Vega, I fall in love. But why I fall in love? Because of the simplicity and because of the depth of the teachings. And the reason that I talk about it, even though it's not my specialties, because, like I said, I like these two texts so much, and I did something back in 1994, and published something on 2000 and something, and so I think, this is not working. Okay. So I want to talk about these two Vegas as an introduction to the transmissions of prana or prajna paramita. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is to explore the Atthaka Vega and the Parayana, two of the oldest and most profound texts available in the early Buddhist canon. And I'm going to talk about its historical significance, also about the themes and teachings, and also the influence on later traditions. So first of all, I'm going to tell a story. The Buddha and his roommate. Okay, the Buddha has a roommate. Yes, he has a roommate. According to the Udana, so one day the Venerable Sona visited the Buddha, and then the Buddha told Ananda, please prepare his bedding in his room. So then Ananda thought about it. Okay, the Buddha must have asked me to want him to stay in the same room. So Ananda actually fixed the bedding for Venerable Sona. So that night, the Buddha and Venerable Sona stay in the same room. Of course, if you are staying with the Buddha, it's not an easy task. In the middle of the night, the Buddha asked Venerable Sona, he said, I would like you to recite the Dharma. So Venerable Sona started reciting the Dharma, so he chanted the 16 parts of the Atthata Vega. Okay, so, and then at the end of the chanting, the Buddha commented, oh, good monk, very good. You have learned the Atthata Vega well, have considered them well, and have borne them well in mind. You have fine delivery, clear, flawless, and make the meaning intelligible. So what I want to say is that, want to point out to you is that these Atthata Vega existed before the first council, right? So even the days of the Buddha, this text was already there. So according to this, all these scholars, Faustball say this is the very oldest, and more importantly, there's the Nidansa, is a commentary, especially for these two Vegas in the Pali commentary. So these two texts was actually compiled in the Khuddaka Nikaya, and then you may want to ask, why is it not compiled in the 4 common Nikaya that we talk about, instead of the small Nikaya? So the reason that I think is that because these texts existed before the first council. During the first council, of course, before the Nikaya was compiled or the Agama was compiled, they were compiled by the monk. However, because the Atthata Vega existed before the first council, so therefore they were not compiled into the Samyutta Nikaya or the Nikaya, so there was so it was not there. So that's why I think the reason that is not compiled in the first, in the ordinary Nikaya that we study, okay? So according to Gomez, he said this is a proto-Madhyamika text. This is what he said, huh? The significance of these cannot be exaggerated. So he says it's very important. In many ways, they anticipated rather than foreshadow some of the key doctrine of the great vehicle. So the Mahayana text was actually predicted, anticipated, and often help establish connections or smooth transitions from the Buddhism of Nikaya Buddhism to the great vehicle. So this was a transition from the very, very earliest text, the text that actually existed during the Buddha time. But from this text, we were able to trace to the Mahayana text, most importantly, the Prajna Paramita. One is tempted to discover here a ground, unfortunately negated by the Abhidhammas and long forgotten by the great vehicle. So what he is saying is that the Abhidhammas or the great vehicle or the Mahayanas do not remember their roots, which actually came from the Atthata Vega and also the Parayana Veda. This is according to Gomez, which I agree. And then Gomez also said that this highlight the Atthata Vega emphasis on the abandoning of all views and proliferation. So in these two texts, it talk about negation of views, which is equivalent to the Prajna Paramita, advocating silence as both an ontological stance, meaning the ineffable, is the ontological, the ultimate, and also the methodological, methodological, or meaning basically ontologically is impossible for us to talk about it. Also, the method to attain this, the ultimate is also not talk about. Okay. So this is the quote from Gomez. He said, the wise rely on nothing seen, heard, or thought, achieving release through non-duality and mindfulness. This aligned with the I must have ate too much in lunch. Sorry about that. The negation of words and view, where the ineffable nature of liberation is approached by negating conceptual framework. So this is actually what, if you are familiar, then the Prajna Paramita is also talking about the ineffable dimension of understanding, okay? So this is something that I wrote back in 1994 and published in 2009. I called it the Pearl of the Tripitaka, Two Vegas, and the Sutta Nipata. This essay is focused on Atthata Vega and the Parayana Vega of the Sutta Nipata, which is generally agreed among scholars to have been the most ancient Buddhist teaching that is available to us. And then the first part of the essays will discuss the structure and concerted message of the two Vegas. At that time, I dive into the two texts and look for the structure. Not too many people look at the structure of the text, but the structure, I think, is very important. It gives us very deeper, because the whole sutta, the Vega, has a concerted message. If you do not see the structure, then you will not see the bigger meaning of the whole sutra, okay? Secondly, the stanza from this Vega that was quoted by Nagarjuna in the Mahaprajna Paramita Satra, translated by Kumarajiva. So in the Prajna Paramita Satra, it quoted from this Vegas. So Nagarjuna know about them, and I tell you what stanza Nagarjuna quoted them. So I just want to demonstrate to you the transmissions from the most earliest text to the Prajna Paramita, demonstrated by the quotation from Nagarjuna. Okay, so let's go. Now this is the structures of the Atthata Vega. There's 16 sutta, and if you look at it, then it's 6, 8, 8, 10, and then all the way up to 21. I don't think that really means anything, but other than that, there is obviously, it was planned that way. So there's a sequential increase in the number. Of course, it's being called Atthata Vega, so a chapter of 8. Obviously, probably, the original sutta was only 2, 3, 4, and 5. The other was probably added on to turn it into a Vega called Atthata Vega, which existed during the Buddha time. What most probably compiled by the Buddha himself. And it was chanted by Venerable Sona in front of the Buddha, and the Buddha endorsed them. So what I want to do is now to go into Sutta 2, 3, 4, and 5 and look at them. Why are they the most important and the core of this Vega? Okay, so now in this only 4 sutta, and it would constitute the path to liberation. So, on top of the cave, the danger of clinging to the physical body. And then Sutta 3, 4, and 5, they are all about the problem of mental attachment, and each one of the sutta deal with the evil, clinging to the desire and self-interest, clinging to righteousness and truth, and the concept of non-duality and non-discrimination. So this 4 sutta by themselves, I think, is already the path to Nibbana if you can follow them. Okay, so now in the sutra, the danger of clinging to the physical body. The wise man who remain attached to the cave, the body, is covered with many defilements and plunged into the confusions. Being of such a kind is indeed far from detachment. From sensuous pleasure are indeed not easy to abandon in the world. Having realized the nature of ideas, the sage is not attached to the worldly object. Having pulled out of the dart of passions, facing easily, he does not crave for the world or to the next. Of course, this is very standard. You see this type of teaching all over the Nikayas. And then I go on to the next. Is summary, give an introduction and a summary of Sutta 3, 4, and 5 in stanza 780, and then say, some evil-minded one do indeed dispute. So it's all about dispute, okay? And those whose minds are set on truth do indeed dispute. You are stuck with evil, you have dispute. If you are set on truth, you dispute. But the sage do not get involved in any dispute which has arisen. Therefore, the sages have no barrenness of mind in any respect. So this is what the four sutra talk about, that you can liberation and no more barrenness of your mind. So let's go Sutta 3, the clinging to the desire and self. How could anyone overcome his own view when he is led on by desire? So we always think my view, my angle is very important. Here the Buddha says, if you are attached to your own view, your own understanding, how can you be free? Entrained in his own inclination, fulfilling those wrong view himself, for as he knows, so he would speak. So you always think you are right. This is what the Buddha is saying. So if you attach to that, you are attaching to the concept of self and to your own desire. So this is the outside of the evil. And then Sutta 4, clinging to righteousness and truth. I see a pure, noble, and healthy man, a person purification emerged from what he sees, thus holding this opinion and having seen this view to be the best, he considered knowledge to consist in the seeing of a pure being. So if you think you are seeing what is right, then if purity were attained through mere seeing, or if suffering could be abandoned through knowledge alone, then one would be purified by external means. So if you can be purified by external means, which here the Buddha implies, no, you will never ever be able to be purified from external. You can only be purified from internal. Yet, for one having such a view is remain bounded by attachment. But this is a wrong view, and those who speak thus are led astray. So the Buddha say, if you have delusion, if you have an evil mind, and even if you are attached to yourself, you think you are right, you will also argue and you will also be in dispute. So, and then finally, Sutta 5, the octave of perfection, concept of non-duality and non-discrimination. To the sage, there is not the slightest prejudiced view with regard to things seen, heard, or felt. How can anyone in the world characterized by thoughts such as the pure one who does not dogmatically grasp any views? They neither form any particular dogma or prefer anything. Dogmatic views are not esteemed by them. The Brahman is not led by rules and right. So at that time, probably the Buddha has not set any precept for the monks yet. At that time, there's no rules. All talk about the purification of the mind. Thus, the steadiest one has gone to the further shore, never more to return. So from this Sutta 2, 3, 4, and 5, if you follow this, you will know what the Buddha is talking about. Non-attachment to the body and non-attachment to any type of concept that you hold on in your mind. This is the earliest teaching from the Buddha, that the Buddha, he himself, I want to show you this type of teaching, the depth of understanding. So this is Venerable Chana thinking. Venerable Chana, of course, is the Buddha's driver, okay? One day he was thinking, he was going around asking all the monks, how can I attain liberation? Then the monk told them, oh, this is what he has in mind. But still my mind does not leap up, grow confident, steadfast, and release in the resolution of all fabrication. We talk about impermanency, relinquishment of all acquisitions, and the ending of craving, dispassion, cessation, unbinding. So, but Venerable Chana said, it is not working for me. You're talking about impermanent, talking no self, but it isn't working. So instead, agitation and clinging arise, and my intellect pull back, thinking, but who then is myself? But this thought doesn't occur to me who see Dharma. So who might teach me the Dharma so that I might see the Dharma? So he said, what people talk about impermanent no self is not working for me. I want to know what I am or who I am not. So he had this thought, so he went to Ananda. This is how So this is how Ananda said. Ananda recalled to that when the Buddha has said, by and large, Kachayana, this Kachayana is the teacher of the Venerable China. This world is supported by, for, or take as the object, polarity that is existent and non-existent. But when one sees the origination of the world as it actually is, with right discernment, non-existent with reference to the world does not occur to one. So when you understand origination, then you would not say the world does not exist. And when one sees the station of the world as it actually is, with right discernment, existence with reference to the world does not occur to one. So what he is saying is that by and large, this world is bondage by attachment, clinging, and biases. He has no uncertainty or doubt that when there is arising, only stress is arising, and that when there is passing away, stress is passing away. In this, one knowledge is independent of other. It is to this extent that there is right view. This is how the Buddha explained what is right view. The right view is not existent, non-existent, and non-existent. You do not fall into these two. Everything exists, that is one extreme. Everything doesn't exist, that is second extreme. Avoiding these two extremes, the Tathagata teach the Dharma via the middle. So this is what I'm trying to point out to you, that this talking about of non-attachment. Non-attachment is the core to Buddha's teaching. Okay, so the Pranayama Vega. Okay, this Vega is unlike it's a chapter on the way to the beyond. Unlike the Atthana Vega, which is a collection of sutta, is comprised of questions to the Buddha from 16 learned Brahmins. So this Pranayama Vega is 16. I'll go fast, okay. The Pranayama Vega is talking about the wisdom and attachment, liberation through the cultivation of wisdom. And here, this talk about all this is talking about the wisdom, which is not very much emphasized in Nikaya. The emphasis is on liberation, ending of suffering, but in the Pranayama is talking about wisdom and awareness released by, it's because also it's called the Parayana Vega, which is the paramita. So if you put the wisdom in front of it, then it becomes prajna paramita. So they are all very similar. The similarities are there. I want to show you. So they also talk about, both texts emphasize wisdom as the vehicle to transcend non-dualistic view and perception of views. Also in the prajna paramita, also non-dualistic view and non-attachment. And then, according to Alexander Bain, he said this is also a type of tradition that is popularized or promoted the Mahakachayana as asceticism and meditation that reached Gandhara. And then from then, it developed the early Prajna Paramita influencing early Mahayana Buddhism. This is what according he said, which I think is very popular. I mean, very possible. And then, so in the Mahaprajna Paramita Satra, in there were 6 references to the Atthana Vega, but all with different Chinese names, but they all refer to the same different translation. And then this, if you say, let's look at one of them, in these 3 verses, according to the Satra, the Buddha expounded the characteristic of ultimate meaning. It is said that the worldly being rely on their own views, their own doctrines, and their own disputation, and from this arise contention and debate. Conceptual proliferation is the root of contention, and conceptual proliferation arises from clinging to various views. So the Nagarjuna quote from the Atthana Vega to demonstrate what is the ultimate meaning according to the text, and then also has more on to this explanation. And also there are many similarities between the Parayana Vega and the Diamond Sutra. I have quoted them here. If you want to see them, you can look at the paper I published in 2009, I remember, and it's all there. So so what I want to say is that these 2 Vegas are timeless treasure, unveiling the original face of early Buddhism. Their themes of wisdom, transcendence, and non-discrimination echo the Buddha's dialogue with Sona to the Diamond Sutra, and also the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra. So I think this is something very important to me. So I want to share them with you. And this is about the transmission. And we can see the transmission from the very early Buddhist teaching, very early teaching from the day of the Buddha himself. And you can all trace them all the way to the Diamond Sutra in today as well. And we can find the source of the Prajnaparamita all the way back to the Buddha teaching. Thank you. And sorry for about not speaking very well today. Okay. So I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Venerable Hin Hong, for that fascinating presentation. We have some time for questions, I think about 10 minutes. So please raise your hand if you'd like to ask something.
Yes, thank you, Venerable. Those two texts are fascinating, and I just was wondering if, in terms of dating them, because Gomez makes this argument that they are Proto-Mahayana texts, right? So what are the earliest witnesses that we have for them to be able to contextualize it in this way, other than the content that looks like Proto-Mahayana in terms of the dating?
Oh, the dating, because remember I showed you that in the Udana text that I quoted from the Buddha's roommates. So if the text was during the Buddha time, when the Buddha was alive, so the Venerable Sona is already reciting the sutra to the Buddha. So the text existed during the time of the Buddha.
Or it could have been an oral tradition that he has memorized it.
It could be, but then most people, and also there's also the Nidansa. The Nidansa is a commentary on the Dutstu Vega, which this Nidansa was supposed to have been written by Sariputra, which is already also incorporated into the Nikaya. So from these two aspects, most people say that they were very, very early. Because they was quoted about the dialogue between them, and this is how most scholars say that they are very early.
Okay, thank you.
Just a little follow-up, Venerable, is that the earliest attestation of the text is in the written form that might be the quotations in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, is that right?
So I think...
the earliest attestation for that as a text is probably in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, right, in the Chinese, in fact, not in Pali or in any other language.
It was in Pali. The original text is in Pali.
Yes, of course, but the earliest mention of the text.
The mention of the text is also mentioned in the Mahaprajnaparamita
Shastra. Yeah, so that's the
Nagarjuna
earliest.
quoted them.
Yeah, okay.
So
So
it existed during, of course, it existed during the Nagarjuna time. But I'm saying that according to most scholars, because there's several reasons that the text is regarded to be the earliest available information to us, is from the Nidansa, the commentary, which is already also Nikaya, because the commentary existed during the time of the compilations. And also, they said the text was recited by Venerable Sona to the Buddha. That's why they said it's... So, because it was recited by it was recorded as a sutra, not as a dialogue. It was recorded as a sutra, which is already existed during the Buddha time. But during the first council, it was recorded as a dialogue between Buddha, this and that. So it was not recorded as a sutra. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the sutra was already existed during the Buddha's time, but then in the compilation of the first council, then the text was compiled in the first council. Then it became the Nikaya.
I see. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So thank you for your presentation. I also have a follow-up comment, I would say. So in the stories of the first council where the Khuddaka Nikaya or the Kshudraka Pitaka, which is what most of the other monastic groups recognize, the Mahasamgikas, Dhammaguptakas. In those accounts in the various Vinaya, most of which are extant in 5th century Chinese translations, the contents of the Kshudraka Pitaka differ. So sometimes you have not the Attaka Vaga, but you have the Artha Vargiya, which is
different translation.
So, I mean, I don't know what happened there. I don't know if anyone has written about this or whether this is a mis-Sanskritization of a Prakrit form, for example, or whether the Artha Vargiya is indeed a different text. And just one final thing, the Nidesa, for example, it quotes certain other texts that were arranged by the Mahaviharans in the 5th century. So there is a big debate about the date of the Nidesa, and I mean, Oscar von Hunuber in his Handbook of Pali Literature said the question is open, basically, on the date of this text. I think it's quite, I don't know if that's, I think it's quite hard to make claims about the dates of these specific texts in the Khuddaka Nikaya because the Mahaviharans organized it very late. I don't know what your thoughts were about this particular problem.
You mentioned the different translation of the names. Of course, I am not qualified to talk about it at all. But the reason I know about them is because from the discussion by the Taiwanese monk Yen Shunfasi, and he wrote about that, and he said there was 6 different translations in the Mahaprajnaparami Satra, and the 6 different translations of the name, which is referring to the same thing. And of course, the Chinese version of the Atharvaveda has a different name from the one that's available in the Pali text. So obviously, the text has very different translation, and people look at the meaning of the titles slightly different. That's why so many. And for me, I think like I said, I'm not really an expert in these, but I think from all the material that I have read and all the scholars that I have quoted, there's no argument that these texts were very, very early. Like I said, I quoted from these people very in the morning. Gomez agree that it was very early. And then, so Faustus also, then these were the reason that they said that these texts were very, very early. So I just, I suppose I believed them. and it makes sense to me. And yeah.
So there's an article by Baba Norihisa called The Fifth Element. And he goes into the history of this Khuddaka Nikaya in detail and presents different views to what Faustball.
But what most impressed me about these 2 Vedas is the teachings and how they are related to the later Prajnaparamita. And because the non-attachment and the non-discrimination is so in line with the Prajnaparamita Sutra. And for me, that is very important because I like the Prajnaparamita Sutra a lot. And then, and I seeing that these teachings already came from the very, very early teaching directly from the Buddha. So that make me feel very lot more confidence on the text of the Prajnaparamita because this is actually what the Buddha, he himself taught during his time. And then, like Gomez said, the Mahayanists did not appreciate that these teachings actually were there already. So, and I think this is very important for us.
Thank you.
Okay.
We've really got time for a very, very quick last question. Yes, Tung Lin.
Okay, thanks for the talk. So it's very good to see that the idea is coming from early Buddhism and to the late Mahayana. So talking about the Buddhism transmission, I wonder whether these principles, they're they're continuous, whether that is possible to be applied in the current modern society, like even
how to apply in the current society. I think that's, of course, very important. I think the concept of non-attachment from the deepest level is, if you go with the impermanent, no-self, cessation, then you are more inclined towards leaving the world. If you are talking about non-attachment and non-discriminations, this non-attachment and non-discrimination is a mentality, it's a type of mindset. I can be in here and talking, giving talks, and I can be eating lunch and doing something with a mind of non-attachment. So you can be a layman and doing all your Bodhisattva work or doing something with a mind of a non-attachment. I think that gives a lot of freedom for people in today's world. Rather than just saying suffering, impermanent, unbinding, nirvana, I can, like in the Mahayana teaching, that allow you to have the freedom to be and not to be. As long as you are not attached to be, or at the same time you are not attached to not to be. So then you give you that freedom to be or not to be.
Can these principles actually be used to supervise like the AI algorithm, like the supervised machine learning? I mean, using the Buddhism principles.
Machine learning and AI, I think is, I don't know, what do you guys think? I think AI is still so many things so up in the air. And how you want to educate AI and how to program, I think is something we can discuss. But I think AI is more on how to ethically setting the parameter for the AI rather than teaching it attachment, non-attachment, something maybe. Because AI has to respond to so many people. Sometimes you have to respond positively, sometimes negatively, sometimes neither or. So like a Bodhisattva, sometimes you have to be very strict, sometimes you have to say don't do it, sometimes you have to do either or. So I think AI is more like a Bodhisattva. It needs to be able to do everything. And all the different perspectives should be available to the AI. I think just like a Bodhisattva. I mean, that's my idea.
Okay. Thank you very much, Venerable.